All right. We made it. Thank growth. It is Friday. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 3 of TGIF. Thank growth. It's Friday. Friday. It's my second favorite F word. Carlin, you're on mute. But how you doing today? See, you're getting your water in. You are well ahead of me. Carlin, can you hear me? Blink twice, Carlin, if you can hear us. Let me see if I can unmute you. Uh-oh, it's that New Mexico interwebs at it again. Joel, my friend, how you doing, buddy? It's good to see you. Thanks for being here this morning, man. We've got a really neat show that I'm really excited to dive into a little bit today. And it is surrounded by understanding what failure really is. And one of the things, it's been a main kind of underlying theme that we've had throughout the coaching program during the last 7 weeks or so. Failure has just been a really big topic that, it's really hard to start wrapping your head around. Understanding what failure is, how failure progresses us forward, how we learn from failure. Actually, as a matter of fact, I was talking with a young lady last night who I have never met before, and her fiance is just diving into the world of entrepreneurship. And from her perspective, because he quit his job and he's like, dude, I'm going all in on this thing. And so I got on the phone with her and we're kind of going back and forth a little bit. And it was interesting because I've been exactly where she's been. I've left the Air Force at 14. I mean, talk about a job that is secure with benefits. And especially after leaving after 14 years, I mean, you can imagine the amount of anxiety that goes into something like that. No less when you live in a place like Alaska that is just barren compared to a lot of the other places in the United States. And, I've got no family here. I've got nobody that I can lean on. I've got nobody that I'm dependent on. It is all 100% on me and my wife to make sure that we are financially secure, and that we're progressing. And so she's talking to me and she's addressing some of the concerns that she has when it comes to failure. And there's a complete mindset shift that has to happen. I think a lot of people, especially people who are wanting to build a business, and every day they go to work, like a little piece of them like dies. Can you guys resonate with that? Like, I feel like that was me for the longest time. Every day I would show up to work and I'd be like, oh man, I feel like I'm dying just a little bit every single day. Anybody else resonate with that? Is anybody else in a job where they're working over 40 hours a week? And you're just like, dude, I'm sitting here like making other people money. I need to be making myself money. And it's funny because the world of entrepreneurship, it has its ups and downs. And sometimes it's really good. And the next day it's completely down. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be the next day. Sometimes it could be the same hour. Within that same hour, it could be minutes apart. It's like, man, something's going good. This deal's going through. I'm about to get paid. And then something else happens, whether it's a final walkthrough, somebody finds something in the inspection, the buyer doesn't all of a sudden qualify for something. Their house was contingent on this property was contingent on the seller's house or the buyer's house selling, and now it doesn't sell. And so you kind of end up in this thing where you're like, dude, what do I do here? How do I wrap my mind around this? Like, why do I keep failing? Why do I keep feeling like things just aren't working out? Does anybody else resonate with that? There's such a mindset shift that has to happen when it comes to failure, understanding what failure really is and how that overall like plays into our growth. What's up, Carlin? Welcome back. I see your interwebs are back up and running. See, failure right here. Failure right here.
If that wasn't the epitome of failure, I was like, yeah, let's go live. It's going to be great. And then it's like, oh, the internet's not working. I was like, oh, well, okay. I'm not.
Sometimes that happens. We've got a guest that we're going to bring on. We're going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds, but I kind of wanted to preface with just kind of understanding and articulating some of the things that happens when we think about failure, when we process failure, and how much failure actually plays such an important part and a vital part in our success. There's not one successful person that has ever gone out and has not failed. If your dream is to go out and to escape your W-2, whether that's to make $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $50,000 a month, $100,000 a month, $1 million a month, whatever that is, you have to go into it understanding that failure is a part of the process. So one of the guests that we're going to have on is a phenomenal individual. I've gotten to know him very well over the last couple months, and he is a sub-2 student. Him and his partner, Shane, are kicking ass over in Vermont. I mean, some of the things that they're doing, and it's been neat to be a part of that process and to see how they have taken failure, how they have wrapped their heads around embracing failure and really understanding how to not only overcome those obstacles, but how to use those failures as what would be an actual launching pad, almost like a slingshot effect. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage.
What's up?
That's Jermaine. What's going on, baby?
Not much. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. Dude, I have not shaved probably in almost as long as you have not shaved.
Oh,
And we almost look like twins.
it's coming in perfectly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's very nice. The
Dude,
length is astonishing.
You know, there was somebody, I talked to somebody that I hadn't seen probably in maybe 2 or 3 months up here in Alaska. Just been so busy, and we finally were able to meet up in person. And I told him, I was like, bro, oh my gosh. To be honest with you, when I walked in, I was worried that you weren't even going to recognize me. I was like, gosh, man, I haven't shaved in a while. He's not going to recognize me. I'm going to be able to sneak up on him and just surprise attack him. Just come at him from behind and do the chokehold or something. But he clocked me as soon as I got out of the car. So.
Yeah.
Be scary. It'd be like, oh no, a bear's attacking me. I'm like, oh.
But Seth, what's going on, dude? How's everything over in your neck of the woods?
It's going really well. Yeah. We you mentioned my partner Shane and I were kicking ass, like you said, over here in Vermont, and so lots of deals being locked up, lots of things happening. So yeah, everything's great.
Dude, tell me real quick, what has been the hardest part when it comes to wrapping your head around understanding what failure really is? Because it's kind of like what I was talking about before I brought you on. I'm having this conversation with this, and actually Carla and I were both having a conversation with this individual, and she wants her fiance to succeed. She doesn't want to have him to feel like he's got to go back to working a W-2, somewhere where he doesn't love, but then the trade-off is, somewhat of some sort of financial security, at least from her perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you articulate what failure is and letting somebody know that, hey, you know what? There's no ceiling as to what you guys can make, but failure is a part of the process. And part of that process is being cognizant of it first and foremost, and then having the intention on supporting them and making sure that when they do fail, in the traditional sense, how most people think about failure, that I've redefined how I think about failure. And I know you and Carlin have done the same. We don't look at the failure as how most people do anymore.
Yeah.
But what would you say to somebody in that situation whose husband has, or their fiance has left their W-2 and they're out they're here to, hey, I'm going to make it work. But their fiance is just really scared about not having that security and really understanding what the big picture is when it comes to being in business, being an entrepreneur, and like we said, embracing failure, really acknowledging what it is. What would you say to somebody in that situation?
Yeah, this topic right here is like near and dear to my heart, because it is not something that I came to very lightly, and it's definitely not something that I have been great at, in my past. And so this type of growth stuff has been super huge, and just redefining that failure, right? So what would I say to this person? I think my initial thought would be, one, you already said this, but failure is inevitable. It's going to happen. You can't avoid it. And to be honest, you're not going to succeed without the failure. You need the failure to hone what you're doing. And so it's absolutely necessary. And so what was the other part of your question there? Sorry.
Like how do you articulate to an individual who her entire life was being taught, and I think, and I speak on behalf of how I know Carlin and I were raised as well, just thinking about money and thinking about risk and financial security and what all that really means compared to what we're doing now and how we're learning about failure and entrepreneurism, and we're learning about how to leverage money and relationships and all that kind of stuff. But for somebody who has never heard any of this type of reframing before, how do you what type of advice do you give to that person?
Yeah, the advice that I would give for failure is, because I grew up the same way. Like, we didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about money in my household, and so that was a totally different, type of mindset when I first got into entrepreneurship and real estate stuff. But advice is, failure is just stepping stones, right? Anything that you fail at is just going to get you to the next level. And you just can't do it without taking those risks in order to, with the idea that you're going to fail and be okay with that failure. You got to take the risks in order to achieve the goal. So you can't do it without it. Yeah.
I think a big part of it is people like think of a baby learning how to walk. They fall, they get hurt, everything happens. And at that point in their life, as parents, we're like, yeah, get back up, keep going, you're doing awesome. But you get older, and now all of a sudden this idea of failure is terrifying. Like, you think of failure and you're like, well, if I can't get it perfect the first time around, then I'm not going to try, because if I fail, then I'm never going to be good at it. So we all get this idea in our head that failing is now basically the bane of existence. Like, we hate that idea because it's not like we're little babies anymore. We don't have someone encouraging our confidence anymore. We don't have someone saying, hey, you know what, you fell, you need to get back up. You need to keep walking. You're going to get better at it. But every day they fall a little bit less and a little bit less. And, especially with the baby in the house, I see this every day, and I have to constantly remind myself, this is just the first time that he's going to be failing. Every day you need to wake up and be encouraging people to fail, because if you're not failing, you're not learning anything.
I love that. And I love the story that you brought up, like with the babies. Because like you said, a baby starting to learn how to walk is obviously falling just left and right. I've done it with 4 kids now. Hopefully there's not a 5, but if there is a 5, I'm open to it. I've had 2 vasectomies now, so we'll see what happens, but I've done it 4 times. And it's interesting because each time that your kid gets up and they let go of the couch or they let go of the wall, and even they're just standing there, you're like, yes, he's got it, right? Or when they start taking their first steps, you're like, yeah, get it. And then they fall, and for a second, you're like, oh, dang it. All right, get back up, right? We start encouraging them to get back up and take those next steps. But why is it that when we metaphorically do the same thing as adults, we encourage each other, we reach out to people, especially people in our family, and we say, hey, whoa, easy, man. You're going to hurt yourself. Do you know what the risk is of trying to walk here? Stay down. You'll be secure. You'll be safe. You won't bruise your elbow. And I think it's so important to acknowledge that metaphor, because it really just goes to show how important it is to have people in your freaking circle that are like, yo, get back up. You got it. Oh, dang it. You fell here. All right, well, what are we not going to do? What are we going to do next time? Instead of taking our first step, let's focus on, let me help you take the next 2 steps. We were kind of we talked about this over the last couple months, but I think somebody brought it up last night. I don't remember who it was, but you will never receive criticism from somebody doing less than you. Wait. No. I said that wrong. You will only receive criticism from somebody doing less than you. Oh. Like, you'll never see a successful business person looking at you trying to start a business and snicker at you or give you crap or say, hey, why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this. You'll never see an NBA player. Michael Jordan will never mock you for trying to get better at perfecting your basketball game. But it's everybody that's doing less that will always be the first to criticize, condemn, or complain. And it's so interesting being on the other side of the road here when people are talking about embracing failure and encouraging people and just abundance. And it's interesting how all of this just kind of comes into play, and we start rethinking and reframing how we ultimately take in failure. So I love that you brought that up, Carlin. I love that you brought that up. And I see Pam. Pam, thank you for being here. I love this comment right here because I feel like so many people can resonate with this. I know I was that person. I was like, dude, I don't want to fail. And that fear of failure keeps me from doing and being the person that I'm meant to be. What kind of advice would you give to somebody, Seth, who was like, man, I know that I'm capable of doing more. I want to be doing more. Pam, I appreciate you sharing that because I have been that person. Like I said, spending 14 years in the Air Force and then being like, oh man, my contract's coming up. I've either got to re-up and I've got to, it's not one of those things where in the Air Force where you can just put your 2 weeks in. When your contract is up, it's like, all right, am I getting out or am I committing at least a minimum another 4 years to the military? And at that point, you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to have to stay in. So it's really understanding and learning how to harness what that feeling of failure is. But Seth, have you ever, can you resonate with that at all? Have you ever felt like, man, I want to take this leap. I know that there's more that I could be doing. I know there's more that I should be doing. But just the fear of either not knowing what to do, how to do it, or having the confidence to do it is inhibiting me from being able to take that next step.
Absolutely. 100%. Like that was, take a snapshot from, a clip from 20 years ago. And that was definitely me. So there's a couple of things that have actually helped me, one, get over that fear, but also to keep me moving. And, and one of those, with the fears thing, action is probably the biggest thing that can take away that fear. So like even baby steps, like Carlin was saying, right? Little baby, baby steps, right? Whatever you're doing, those little baby steps are gonna give you confidence. It's oh geez, I can't remember who said this. Maybe it came from Failing Forward, that book, but it was like motivation does not breed action. Action breeds motivation. And so it was, and on the other side of that, it's, feeling does not give you motivation. Action gives you motivation. And so the feeling of fear, you have to recognize is not thing. Action is what's going to do it for you. And then once you do take action, probably the biggest thing that has helped me is, I stumbled. Okay. Didn't do that right. Now what? Right. And being able to write down whatever it is, whatever that win is from that fail is absolutely critical for me, because I can pull out whatever the lesson is. I can pull out what I did do right in that situation, but still failed, and then double down on the right thing. Right. So, getting over the fear, man, that's a huge deal. Yeah.
I love how you talked about kind of reframing that and making sure you're annotating it, you're thinking about it, and you're acknowledging it appropriately. Because I know that, Carlin, talk about this for a second. I know you are like a journal fiend. I don't know anybody, like if you were a pilot in the Air Force or something, Carlin, like you would be Carlin, journal enthusiast, Hostert. Like that would be that'd be your call sign. Like Seth would be Maverick, and you would be like journal enthusiast. Or journalist. They call you journalist, the Maverick of journalists.
Book.
Book. I know you are so intentional when it comes to your journaling and documenting these things, especially your failures. And to go along with what Seth was saying, like reframing how you're seeing those failures, and not only how you're seeing it, but how you're documenting it. Can you share with everybody some of those things that you're doing, some of the things that you have done intentionally to kind of change your cognitive structure of how your brain interprets fear and failure, and how you're processing those every day?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, first and foremost, I can safely say if you'd met me 10 years ago, I wouldn't do anything. If I didn't think I was going to be good at it, I wasn't going to do it. The only thing I actually felt confident in my abilities was rugby. And
Yeah.
realistically, that's unless I go pro for rugby, which doesn't really happen in the States, I wasn't going to get anywhere. So I think when it comes to journaling and the way you process things, for me it's fun to go back through my day and write out what I failed at, and then I take that little section and you have to like kind of flip it. Say, okay,
Hmm.
well, if I wasn't good at this, like um today I didn't go plant my garden. That's
Hmm.
some that realistically, like truth be told, I'm definitely procrastinating on it because it's hot as crap. Um, so okay, so today I didn't go plant my garden. Okay, so I'm going to improve on my time blocking skills to make sure I accommodate the time I need for my garden.
Hmm.
Like the way you reframe things is going to drastically change the way your brain is processing things. Because if you're sitting there saying, oh, I didn't do this, oh, I didn't do this, oh, I was so bad at this today, then your brain is teaching itself, I'm bad at this. I don't have these abilities. I'm not capable of doing this. But when you start reframing, your brain is making all these tiny little tweaks, and all these neurons are now going into different parts of your brain where it's like, oh, okay, I can do this. I didn't do it right now, but I can do it tomorrow. I just
Hmm.
need to be a little bit more aware of my time. I just need to make sure I'm doing this a little bit better. And now you're teaching yourself that you can improve, and
Mm.
you're not stuck on this tiny little thought of, oh, woe is me, I didn't plant my garden, so now I'm a failure because I said I was going to do it and I didn't do it.
Yep.
Because what else happened in your day? What else happened in your day? Maybe you didn't plant your garden. Maybe you took your kids for a walk though, or maybe you went and got some really good food at Whole Foods or Albertsons or Walmart or wherever you get your food. Maybe you got some really good food. So maybe though you didn't plant your garden, you were still productive, but your
Uh-huh.
brain automatically finds the failures. It finds, oh, I didn't do this right. I messed this up. So, alongside being able to transfer your thoughts into productive thoughts, you also need to be writing down what you did accomplish during the day. So if you were to go look through my journal, every time I do something I feel good about, I write it down immediately. If it's as simple as making my bed, which by the way, I did that like 30 minutes ago and I have not written it down, guys. I haven't done that yet. Um, Write it down. If you took your kids out for a walk this morning, I took my kids around the block for a little bit this morning. Wrote it down. Oakley stepped on a cactus. Oh, I feel bad about it. Okay. Well, now Oakley knows not to step on cactus. So so everything in your day is a learning moment, and the way you choose to process these things is going to drastically impact what you find yourself available to do.
I love that you brought up, like, even on a neurological standpoint, you have to, the way that you think will literally start to physically change your brain and the neurons in it and how they are firing based on how you interpret, how you reframe, how you see the world, how you embrace failure, how you see obstacles, how you overcome fear. And I love one of the big things that you pointed out is writing everything that felt good, everything that happened that was good that day. That's a good place to start, because when you talk about getting the not necessarily the courage, that's not the word I'm looking for, but getting the what's the word I'm looking for? It's right on the top of my tongue. Gosh dang it, it's right there. Getting the
Describe it.
keep wanting to say courage, but it's not. It's courage isn't the right word.
Confidence?
Confidence. That's the word. Thank you. Holy torpedo, Batman. We're gonna get there. I feel like it's almost the second Monday today. But it was being able to stack those wins is like pertinent to your growth and your development, because you start to gain more confidence when you start to acknowledge everything in your day, even just the littlest and the most minute things that go right, and you can document it. You can actually see that progression, and you see the return on investment. Not even, and when I say return on investment, I don't even necessarily mean from a monetary standpoint. I mean from a growth standpoint. Are you better today than you were yesterday? Even if it's only 1% better. But when you start to stack up those wins, your confidence will increase. When you're cognitive and intentional with acknowledging those, even just the smallest wins, they stack up over the course of a week and 2 weeks and a month. And even 30 days later, you are now somebody else that is one step closer to being the person that you're capable of becoming. You can look back 30 days ago and say, oh my gosh, wow, I never would have had the desire or the ability or the confidence to do the things that I'm doing now, or to be able to reach out to this person, or to ask for advice, or ask for help, or say, hey, this is actually something that I could do to help you. And so it's so important to be intentional with stacking those wins. And it starts to callous your mind, as David Goggins says. I love David Goggins.
Love that.
You familiar with that term, Seth?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Callousing your mind?
Yeah, Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins Burke, one of my favorites. Absolutely.
Yeah, phenomenal book. If you guys haven't read that, phenomenal book, especially when it comes to mindset. But mindset in fear, like those two embraced together can do some amazing things. And I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you guys are, Carla and Seth, let's say you guys are asleep in your bed. Your families are asleep. It's 2 a.m. and your fire alarm starts going off. Seth, what are you going to do at 2 a.m. when your fire alarm is going off?
First off, in Vermont, we don't need fire alarms. There's no code for that. But if fire alarm goes off, I get up, I check everything to make sure there's no fire. And if there's evidence of such a thing, then everybody gets out of the house. I wake everybody up, get everybody up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be a good way of using fear to achieve a desired outcome, to do something that was good, to serve, to be intentional, right?
Sure. Everybody's safe.
It's interesting because when we have fear, when we're talking about fear here, the equivalent, the metaphor to that is there are so many people, bro, that metaphorically they wake up at 2 a.m. because the fire alarms in their life are going off. And they go and turn the fire alarm off and they go right back to bed.
Or they sleep through it.
I mean, that just isn't going to work out for anybody. Right? So it's interesting how, like, the way that we process fear and the way that we process failure and the impact that those two things can have on our mindset and the things that we're willing to do, as long as we are intentional with stacking those wins and taking those in strides and learning from those every single day. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to continue having the same freaking problems in your life and in your business because you're not learning from them. Let me share something with you guys really quick. This is like the perfect way. If you guys are watching this right now and you guys are like, I saw somebody, I think who was it? Jordan. Jordan says, I'm at Walmart listening to this. Okay, Jordan, if anybody else is in Walmart or you're in your car or whatever, I want you guys to pay attention to the next thing that I'm going to share with you guys. Please pay attention to this. This is one of the best things that I have ever read that really helped me process and understand what failure really is. Of all the things we're talking about today and all the things we're going to be talking about throughout the rest of the episode, I want to share this one thing with you. Because for me personally, and I know I've talked about it with Carlin and with Seth as well, this has been one of the biggest things, if not the biggest, that has aided in my mindset as it relates to failure and understanding the way that the story that I'm going to tell you guys and how it's articulated is going to leave a very big imprint on you and your business and your self-development for using this as a foundational launch pad to really start seeing some very dramatic results. So let me share this with you guys real quick. This is from one of my favorite books. It's called Failing Forward. If you guys haven't heard of it, if you guys haven't read it, please write this down right now. Pay attention to what I'm about to share with you guys, because you're going to want to, I want you guys to take this and share this with somebody else. This is really, really good. So this is from a book called Failing Forward by John Maxwell. It says, the ceramics teacher announced on opening day that he was dividing the class into 2 groups. All of those on the left side of the class would be graded solely on the quantity of work they produced. Now, real quick, if anybody doesn't know what ceramics is like pottery. Okay, I just wanted to, just so everybody knew where this was going. So I'm going to read that last part again. All those on the left side of the studio would be graded solely on the quantity of work that they produced. Quantity. All those on the right side of the class would be graded solely on the quality of work that they produced. His procedure was simple. On the final day of class, he would bring in his bathroom scales and he would weigh the work of the quantity group. 50 pounds of pots rated an A, 40 pounds of B, and so on. Those being graded for quality, however, needed to produce only 1 pot, albeit a perfect one, in order to get an A. Well, came grading time, and a very curious fact emerged. The works of the highest quality were all produced by the group being graded for quantity. It seems while the quantity group was busily churning out piles of work and learning from their mistakes. Let me say that again. It seems while that the quantity group was busy churning out piles of work and learning from their mistakes, the quality group, however, had sat around theorizing about perfection, and in the end had little more to show for their efforts than grandiose theories and a pile of dead clay. It doesn't matter whether your objectives are in the area of art, business, ministry, sports, or relationships. The only way that you can get ahead is to fail early, fail often, and fail forward.
Love that quote.
Dude, that is such an amazing passage right there. Because that was me, dude. Like, I started a business a little over 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And, dude, I didn't want to fail. And so you know how much time, Seth, that I spent trying to figure out what CRM I was going to use, what list I was going to use, what market I was going to use, how I was going to talk to these guys, when I was going to talk to them, how often I was going to talk to them. Should I post here to talk with other people? Should I post there to talk with other people? And you know how much time I took and just freaking wasted? Sat around theorizing about how to build the perfect business instead of just getting in there and churning out pots of clay?
Do I want to know the answer? What's the answer?
A lot, bro. I wasted a lot of time and a lot of money. I remember, man, I probably lost the first 3 months. I probably lost about 15 grand. First 3 or 4 months. Because a lot of that time was wasted. I sat around theorizing.
Yeah, Shane and I did the same thing. Yeah. You know, we spent a lot of time thinking about the perfect way to do it before, you know, not realizing that we just needed to do it, you know.
Yep.
However you start is better than theorizing, for sure.
100%, bro. 100%. And, you know, it's funny because I went to a church function probably 4 or 5 months ago, and it was interesting because it was during this church function, like they had like activities, they had food, beverages, like they had like a little drink station where you could get all these different concoctions made, and kids had fun with it. And so we're in line. I'm in line with my kids and my wife, and we're getting everybody food. And then at the very end is like where you get the drink. You go to the drink station, and everybody, you can order like root beer floats and all the these crazy like Italian sodas and things like that, right? So I've got 4 kids. 3 of my kids they wanted root beer floats. All right, cool. Get your root beer floats, go sit at the table and let's eat. My other kid, my third kid, my son at the time was 3, and he just wanted root beer. He didn't want a root beer float. He just wanted root beer. And we're eating our meal, and he's got just a little bit left of his hot dog. And then he had like a handful of Cheetos left on his plate. And he looks up at me and he's like, "Hey, Dad, can I go get a root beer float?" I said, "Yeah, you can go get just finish your hot dog and your chips. Eat your food first, and I will take you up there to go get a root beer float." And I kid you not, Seth, I sat around and I'm watching my son, and he's trying to negotiate. He's trying to convince his older brother and his older sister to let him have a little bit of their root beer float. And then he's talking to my 2-year-old daughter, trying to get a little bit of her root beer float. He's literally doing anything and everything for the next 15 minutes, trying to get some root beer float instead of eating what little bit of his hot dog and a couple chips he had left on his plate. And I thought, man, how, like, I feel like that just resonated with me so much. Like, just do the work. Like, are there any other parents in here that can resonate with that? Like, dude, what are you doing? It's taking you 15 minutes. If you'd have just eaten your hot dog and chips, you could have had a root beer float 15 minutes ago, bro. What are we doing here?
What's crazy though, that is not only a child mentality though, right?
100%. That's me as an adult.
Yeah.
You know, if we would just get in there and do the thing and stop worrying about and stop theorizing about perfection, just get in there and do the work, you'd have your root beer float already. Just eat your hot dog real quick so we can hurry up and move forward. That was such a light bulb moment in my mind. I was like, dude, the way that I now process failure is I try to get in there. I just try to F it up as much as I can, because the faster that if I can just hurry up and fail, then I can just hurry up and succeed. That way I can have my root beer float and I'm not sitting around here, waiting 15 minutes trying to get it anywhere, from everywhere else. And I can just hurry up and fail, and I can hurry up and eat my root beer float. Dude. Dwy Parr, as they call him. Dude, thank you for being here, bro. This guy is an amazing individual. He is my brother. Him and I served in the Air Force I've known him since 2010. We met on top of an F-22, actually, coincidentally enough, up here in Fairbanks. I still remember that day. He had a broken leg. So it's slick out here in Alaska, guys. But thank you for being here, bro. I appreciate you. He's actually in Fayetteville, North Carolina right now. I don't know if you're still there or anything, bro, but thank you. He was walking a property for us this morning. So thank you very much. Yeah, broken leg on an F-22, man. He had a cast and everything on. He's a beast. Beast. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because that was being able to read that passage from that book and understand what failure really is, how it applies in our lives, and then just sitting there with my son and watching him doing anything and everything except just eat what little bit just do the work. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're going to learn. It's almost like trying to build a football team, and or maybe you even want to play football. And you're sitting here like watching all the YouTube videos, you're reading all the news articles, you're doing all these things, but there are certain things that you cannot foresee or you won't learn about the game unless you actually go out there and you have to practice it. So that's kind of how I started perceiving what failure is I've got to get out there and I've actually got to practice it. And I'll give you guys a really specific example. And then Carlin and Seth, I'd love you guys to kind of share a little bit of example on some of the things that you guys are doing to embrace failure in your lives every single day. I know when I was trying to learn how to be a closer and understand how to communicate things, how to articulate myself, how to ask questions and phrase things in a certain way that will solicit a certain response, from a seller, or get them to say something, or get them to open up in a certain way, or I can say things in a certain phrase or with a certain tone that'll help me build rapport with a seller that wouldn't otherwise, have helped me, make that connection. And so it's not enough to just sit around and read books, to take that information, to write it down, to be intentional, and to practice it in the shower, or rehearse it in the shower, or practice it with your wife. You have to have that practice time in real time. And one of the things that I did to start embracing failure as it relates specifically to my business is I would time block time in the morning for listening to an audiobook or reading a book. It was always 30 minutes. And I always had my notepad ready, or I had the notes app on my phone ready to go. And it's something I still do this day. Every time I'm reading a book, I still got the notes app, and each folder, I've got all these different folders for all these books I've read. And then I've got notes underneath or within each folder. And one of the things that I would do is, if I would read, like, there's a book, if anybody here is a closer and you guys are trying to up your sales, or your ability to communicate or negotiate or persuade, you guys are probably familiar with a book called Never Split the Difference. Phenomenal book. If you guys haven't heard of it and you want to get better at that, then definitely go pick that book up. But within that book, it gives you certain things to say. When you're trying to do X, Y, and Z, or get somebody to do whatever, or give you whatever sort of information, it does a really good job of giving you context as to the psychology behind it, and then giving you the actual line that you got to say. And so one of the things I would do is I've always got sticky notes all over my desk. This is where I'd make all my calls, everything. And I would write that line down that I got from that book. And I'd usually do about 5 at a time. So I'd pick out 5 lines. There's hundreds of lines that you can use in that book, but I pick out 5 and I put them all on a sticky note where they are, right where I make my phone calls. And I'm like, dude, I'm about to fail, man. I'm about to get my ass ripped. I remember making my first phone call, dude. And I'm like, hey, just calling about your property. Wanted to see what you were interested in selling it for. And I remember the first time I ever heard this, he's like, well, you called me. What are you going to buy it for? In my head, I was thinking, oh shit. I really wasn't prepared for a follow-up question. But that's embracing failure. And that's you got to be cognizant with those things. So when that happened, I would write those types of questions down, and I would go find answers to them. And then I would rehearse them and I'd practice them. But the point that I'm getting at is, it's not enough to just, when we're talking about failure and taking action and gaining the confidence from that, it's not enough to just theorize about it, to write things down, to think about it. You have to put it into play. You have to practice it. And so I time block time in my day for getting information, either from books or listening to other people make calls or whatever. And then I would time block 2 or 3 hours in my day, every single day, for what I called practicing. And in my head, I wasn't going in there trying to close a deal, because I know that when I tried to do that before, when I went into it, that mindset, I'm sitting here like I froze up. And I was scared, and I was like, shit, I don't know how to close this deal. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know. I'm going to F it up, and I don't want to F it up. And when I changed the way that I perceived going into that phone call, it's like, dude, all right, it's practice time. It's like, hey, let's get out on the field. Let's run a couple plays. Let's see what works, what doesn't work. Where's the offense at? Where's the defense at? So that's how I started reframing, how I started using my time and overcoming that fear of failure with regard to my avatar and the skill that I was trying to build. And so then I started going into it with just all right, well, let me see if this line works. Let me throw this out here. Oh, shit. Dang, it worked. I don't know what to say after this. And then that becomes the next part. But once you figure out, you gain a little bit of confidence, right? And you're like, okay, I'm going to use this line. This is what I'm going to say. And then so that's how I use that as practice. And with each little win, I'd figure out how to better communicate something, or how to articulate something, how to pitch something, especially when you're talking creative finance. So that's what helped slowly develop my skill and gave me more and more confidence. But just going in there and reframing it from, man, I'm trying to make these calls so I can make money and close these deals. I just started reframing it to, all right, it's practice time. And I'm going to go F it up so I can hurry up and learn which lines are going to work and which ones are not. So understanding that with regards to any businesses that I've been part of or I've built, that's one of the big things that I have understood with going into it, is just going in there and, all right, we got to hurry up and figure out what works and what doesn't work. But what are some of the things that you guys have done to implement into your business to help build that skill?
Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, yeah, man, I've been writing down just notes that I want to interject with what you were saying, because you spit so much good stuff there, man. Like writing it down, trying to figure out stuff. But the first thing that came to mind was, along the sort of a parallel quote. And to be honest, I don't remember who said it, but it was, what if I told you that it was going to take you 25 no's to get to a yes, right? And it's only going to take you 25. How fast would you try to get through those no's to get to that yes, right? And that always plays in my head every time. I didn't know you called it practice time. I didn't realize that, but that's what I call it too. Like anytime I'm going to go practice, I'm going to go get on the phone. I'm going to really get into a pickle. But yeah, one of the you have mentioned before that you use your sticky notes, and for me, I like to walk around while I'm talking. It makes it easier, and I'm more energetic, and like I actually smile at my phone and whatever when I'm walking around. But a lot of times what I do is I put it up on my board. And so what I'll do is any lines or anything that I'm trying to figure out, I write it on my whiteboard, and then and then once I got it, once I practiced it a bunch of times, and I'm like, okay, I can fit that into my repertoire now. I then erase it, and then I put something else up there, so that it just keeps building. But yeah, I like that. The how many times are you going to fail? How many times are you going to get a no? What kind of situations are you going to get in that you don't know what to do with, and then finally get to your yes. But and the other thing I wrote down too was and this kind of came from like when I wake up in the morning, I do a daily yoga thing. I do like an hour's worth of yoga, and as part of my exercise thing, actually part of our 75 hard challenge that we're doing.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things that came out of that yesterday that resonated, and I had been thinking about, was this idea that, okay, you're in this position that does not feel good. Something is straining, stretching, something, right? But just sit with it for a second. Just sit there and feel the feeling, right? And so that's kind of how I, like, even on the phone, that gives me a pause, right? Like, I am in a position that I don't freaking know what to do about, right? And he asked this person's asked me a question. I don't know how to answer it. I don't even know how to respond. I'm just gonna sit for a second, let it be quiet.
I love that.
And then I'll figure something out, and I'll move forward. But yeah, so yeah. Kyle, what do you got to say about that?
First of all, I'm like you, I pace. So if you look at my front yard, there's a sidewalk that comes up, and then we live on a corner lot. So the sidewalk goes over to my driveway, and my neighbors probably think I'm like a lunatic or something, because I'll walk hundreds of laps around that thing a day. If I'm on the phone for the day, I'm doing laps. And one of the things that really sticks with me is, especially if I'm making phone calls, there's nothing anyone can say to me that I have not heard before. So if I'm scared of someone cussing me out, I've been called some pretty creative names. Like,
that's a great way to put it. Some creative names. I like that.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Actually, sometimes I'm just like, I wonder what I'm going to get called today. I wonder what what's the creative winner for the day. And to my dismay, I actually don't get cussed out as much as I used to. So I don't really have a winning name for you guys right now. But it just, having that mindset where people are gonna say mean things, like having that mental preparation where you're gonna get some ugly things. People are gonna ask you things that you're not prepared for, and write it down, write everything down. Book over here keeps track of everything for me. What's the question that I got asked that I don't have an answer for? And living with a closer, anything I don't have an answer for, I'm just like, hey James, what do I say to this? Like, Like having the people to back me up, because now that I can move forward with the next question, chances are that question's going to come up again. People are very predictable, I guess. I mean, that's how we write the books on all of these things, is predictability.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I have a mantra with my kids, and we say it every day. I know some people have heard me talk about my affirmations with my kids. Well, walking up to the school every morning, we say the affirmations in the car. Every morning, affirmations are in the car, but we have a mantra that we do walking up to the school, because I'm that parent that walks my kids to the door. Bye, baby. I love you. Have a good day. Like, I'm that parent. So walking up,
Me too,
I say,
Carla. Me too.
yeah, it's so much fun, and my kids are not embarrassed by it yet.
Yet.
So, so I'm gonna enjoy it while I can. But walking up to the door, and this helps me too. This is like my daily reminder for me. I say, "What do you do if you fail?" And they tell me, "Mom, we try again." I said, "Well, what if it doesn't work?" "Well, we find a new way." "Okay. Are you allowed to give up?" "No. Giving up's not an option, because there's a solution for everything." And having to remind myself that you can do that with conversations, you can do that with housework, you can do that with literally anything. There is a solution for it. You just have to figure out what it is. And so reminding myself that any part of the day, no matter what I do. My 2-year-old broke my favorite coffee mug this morning. Granted, I'm not going to be able to use it anymore, but I super glued it back together because it has very important memories for me. So might not be a coffee mug solution, but now I have something to hold my pens.
I don't want to give you another hobby to follow, because I know you're a hobbyist, but
Don't do it.
you could learn how to do the Japanese style of putting gold in the cracks of things that break. And so just going to put that out there.
I was thinking of that. I was thinking of it while I was super gluing. I was like, man, this would be so much cooler if this was gold. Like,
yeah, there it is. Yeah. So, you said something that resonated, Ellen. Shoot, I should have written it down. Shoot, what did you? Sorry. Go ahead. I'll do something else. I'll think about it.
Do something else.
Yeah, do something else. Let me think about it. What did you say?
It's about mantras.
No. Man, it resonated so well.
While you're thinking of it, while you're thinking of it, let me throw this out here for everybody who's watching right now. I want to throw something. I've been wanting to do this for probably a year now. I've had this idea that I have not done for a year now, and it specifically is it revolves around embracing failure, and not only that, like making a game out of it. And so I don't quite have all the details worked out, but I've got a foundation for it, and I've got things that are actually in place. So let me know if this was something. This is actually the first time I've talked about it live, with the exception of, no, there's no exception. I've talked to a couple individuals specifically about it and said, man, wouldn't this be fun to bring to somebody? Because I am this type of person where I'll give you an idea on like where this came from. I'm big into music, love music. Anything and everything 80s, like that's me. From Madonna to Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, AC/DC, Kiss, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, like that's all me. Freaking love it. That's why it says Full Metal Jesse up here. And one of the things it's not enough for me to just hear something. I've got to listen to it like a million times. My mom loves that. My wife does not love that. But it's interesting because from my perspective, don't tell my wife I called her mom.
It's recorded.
My mom, it's interesting because I'll listen to something 10 times, and from my wife's perspective, all she hears is me listening to the song 10 times. But when I go back and I listen to the song, I'm listening, like as a musician myself, I listen to like something different every time. I'm listening to the overall song in general, and then I'll go back and I'll listen to the guitar parts. And then I'll have to go back and listen to it again. And then I'm listening to the key changes, the chord changes, how everything complements each other. I'm listening when it gets to the solo part, What is going on? What is the rhythm part that's going on underneath the solo? How do they complement each other? I'm listening to the vocal melody, and then I got to go back and I got to listen to it again, and I got to read the lyrics that go along with it. So each time, it's almost like I'm listening to something different the first time, but all my wife hears is me listening to the damn song 100 times in a row, which is interesting. But the reason I preface with this, it's not only enough to hear everything about the songs, like I've got to know stuff about the artists. I got to know how they came up with the name, how they came up with the wardrobe, how they came up with this whole theatrical thing. And Kiss is a great example to me of how I've taken their same mindset and included that into my brand and my business and the things that I'm doing to try to help and serve people the best as I can. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I remember Kiss, one time back in the 70s, dude, when Kiss came out, I mean, they had the makeup, they had the blood that was going on, during their live shows. They had fire, they had swords, they had all these things. And for a lot of people back in the 70s, they would look at that because that's never been done before. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is satanic AF. As a matter of fact, growing up, no joke, speaking of my mom used to tell me that like bands like Kiss was an acronym that stood for Knights in Satan's Service, or AC/DC stood for Antichrist, Devil's Children. But none of those are true, by the way, but just fun fact, I'd throw that out there. But obviously I was really intrigued with, bands like that. And I was watching an interview one time as to how Kiss came up with their theatrics, how they came up with their show, how they came up with everything. And it was cool to hear them because they basically said something to the tune of, we just looked at it from the perspective of fans of music. And as a fan, what type of show would we want to see? And then that's what they went and created. And that's why it had never been done before. They looked at it from like, man, from our perspective, what is it that we would love to see as fans? Oh my gosh, wouldn't it be awesome to have like all this fire and this blood, and it'd be like, wow, like a shock and awe type deal thing. It wasn't satanic. It was just the theatrics. It was the artistry in them. But it was interesting. It was cool hearing that because I've taken that same mindset and implemented that into my own business and a lot of the things that we're doing. And, like Shane and I right now are doing a Zoom showing connectors just how to make money, how to monetize their relationships. Like I look at things in different light now, and I look at under that opportunity of what would I want to know as a fan of business, as a fan of real estate, as somebody who's always trying to level their game. What would I have wished somebody would have been doing back when I first started, or when I was at this level trying to get to X, Y, and Z? And so that leads us. So I just wanted to share all that just to give you guys some context as to why this idea came about, or what it is that we're doing, or why we're doing these things. Because I always look at things like, man, if I was in somebody else's shoes, how can I help out the next guy behind me, or the next two guys behind me, or whatever? Whether you're a step behind me, whether we're on the same page, or whatever that looks like, how can I take what I have learned and give that back and package it in a context of what would I have wished somebody would have put together for me when I was in that position? And so talking about fear and failure, I came up with this idea that I thought would be kind of cool. And let me know in the comments if this is something you think we should do, guys. Because if there's support behind it, then I'll do it. But I've never ousted this in a public forum like this. But take like the game bingo, for example. We'll combine like bingo and like Hollywood Squares. So everybody, like, we'll get like 5 people or 10 people where we all jump on a Zoom and we're kind of playing bingo. But on these bingo sheets are tasks. They're things that you have to do. Like, for example, you have to call a seller live with no context, whether you've called a seller before or not. You got to call a seller live, and you got to get cursed at in order to get that square. And so right here on live, and everybody's doing it. It's a game, and that's how you win. You can't move to the next thing. You can't get a bingo unless you call somebody and you get cussed out. So then you're overcoming that fear. You got everybody watching. You got everybody supporting you. We're all laughing at it. It's a good time. And it's something that is, it gets you out of your comfort zone, and it's fun to do. And the entire point, the way that you win this game is to go call somebody and get yelled at. Or you have to call somebody and you have to pitch creative. Whether you know creative or not, you just have to call and do it. just to overcome that fear and that fear of failure. And in doing it, that's how you win the game. And then we'll have like some really cool prize. Maybe we'll bring like somebody up to Alaska and do something for a week or something. I don't know. But let me know if you guys think in the comments if you think that's something that would well, one, I think it would be entertaining, but I think for a lot of people, if I had somebody that was around me and we were doing this as a game and the entire point of the game was to get out and to fail, I think it would be a lot of fun. I think it would be super dope.
It'd be a literal game changer.
No pun intended. Love that. But anyway, guys, I know we're a little over an hour now. Seth, Carlin, thank you guys so much for doing this. This is one of my most favorite topics as it relates to self-development, growth, mindset, business. Understanding just these little things like this, like understanding failure, understanding fear. Those two things specifically, being able to get in here, open up a dialogue and have a conversation. Leaving really helps you start to look at things throughout the rest of your day and throughout the rest of your week and the months to come in a whole different light. And it's those small little changes that we make today that will snowball into this big thing where you look back in 6 months, you look back in 12 months, and you're like, wow, I'm not even the same person I was 30 days ago. And this is such a big, proponent of what keeps people from taking that next step or becoming, being one step closer to becoming that person that they're capable of becoming. So thank you guys for being on here and for sharing your guys' experience and opening the dialogue up a little bit. And before we leave, do you guys have any parting words or anything else you'd like to share with everybody?
Get a journal. That's my advice. Get a journal. Start keeping track of these things.
I would agree with that. I would also add, get your cheerleaders. Go find the people who are going to pump you up, even when you fail. And this is what I was going to say before, and I remembered, I wrote it down. But yeah, as soon as I get cursed at, I have people I can tell, right? I'm going to immediately be like, I got yelled at,
You never guess what this person said.
You literally have everybody on the Zoom with you and everybody watching, like just encouraging.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that was awesome, man.
Yeah.
Talk about creative words. Who can come out with the most creative word?
How quickly can you get hung up on by an agent?
Yeah. I love that, man. Well, everybody in the comments thought that would be pretty fun. I think that'd be pretty entertaining. And I love what both of you said. It really would encourage just an immediate support system because that's the entire point.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. I hope everybody has an amazing Friday. Thank Growth It's Friday. Actually, wait a minute, Carlin, were there any announcements that we needed to make? I think we kind of zoomed over that, but I want to make sure that we didn't forget anything. Oh yeah. Shane and I are doing this connector Zoom. If you guys are watching and you are a connector and you guys want to learn how to monetize your relationships, then you need to be on the next Zoom. It is going to be on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we did our first episode, which was really, really good, last Tuesday. And I've got the recording. If you guys go to my Facebook, I made a post on everything. If you guys want to see that recording or you would like to rewatch it, go to my Facebook or Shane's Facebook. And we have instructions there for you guys on what you need to do in order to get a copy of the recording. So if you guys would love to see that, let us go to our Facebook. Go ahead and do that. It's going to probably be maybe a 3 or 4 week series that we end up doing. So if you are a connector, you are not making money from those relationships. You need to be. You're leaving money on the table. I'm also going to add to that. If you missed last week's, go do the things. We'll send you the recording. But moving forward, you guys, there won't be any recordings for public consumption. If you guys want to be in on these meetings, it's going to be a live thing only. So if you can't make it, you can't make it. But we're going to have the registration link open probably tomorrow. So stay tuned. Make sure you guys are following because we're also limiting it to only 100 people. That's it. You have to be there. It has to be live. And it's only the first 100 people that get in. Moving forward, not just on Tuesdays, but moving forward, that's how it's going to work. So if you guys are wanting to learn how to monetize, then make sure you guys register. Make sure you guys are following us. Shane, thank you for putting this in here, bro. So me, Chanel, and Shane will be hosting these. You can go to any one of our Facebooks, and there you can get more information. What else?
Pam, no, you do not have to be a connector to be in the connectors meeting. It's literally a meeting full of connectors. So if I'm not a connector, I'm showing up there because the connector, they've got the connections. So that's I would be showing up to that meeting specifically to be finding the people I need to be talking to. That's exactly what I did. I'm talking to a couple connectors right now that are finding me lenders. So it's a really valuable resource for, yes, I know I'm hilarious. It's a really valuable resource no matter what position you're in. The other couple things we have going on, we do have a few seats left available for the Growth Co, and we definitely want to be giving you guys the full value that we really want to be able to do for you. So if you are interested in the Growth Co, send me or Jesse a message and we can schedule a Zoom call. Lastly, we love bringing people onto our podcast. And if you are interested in being on the podcast, you have something that you really feel like you could provide value for, send us a message so we can get you on and have an absolutely amazing conversation and really just showcase what you're doing with your business.
Yes. Love it, love it, love it. Awesome, guys. Well, I hope everybody has an amazing Friday. Think Growth, it's Friday. Seth, thank you again for being here, man. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for coming in and sharing some of those golden nuggets and bringing value, man, as always.
You're welcome. I love it. Thank you so much.
You bet. See you guys. Have a great weekend.
Bye, y'all.